Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this European Year of Skills virtual get-together organized by Cedefop to discuss the efforts of European countries to make their vet systems agile, flexible, excellent, attractive, inclusive, and quality assured. My name is George Kostakis, and I work at Cedefop as a coordinator in the Department for Vet and Qualifications. Cedefop is the European agency that supports the development and implementation of vet, skills, and qualifications policies. From our premises in Thessaloniki, in Greece, we work closely with the European Commission, the EU member states, the social partners, the civil society, and other vet stakeholders for the whole of Europe. We organize virtual get-togethers. Actually, this is the 9th one that we organize throughout the European Year of Skills. And we do it to discuss any trends and challenges with you, an audience of policymakers, of researchers, of vet practitioners, sectoral stakeholders, and other partners. In today's virtual get-together, you're joining us from about 50 different countries. Most of you from Europe, some of you are based in countries neighboring to the EU or in other parts of the world. So I would like really to welcome you, everyone. A very welcome to everyone. As with every event, we do have a couple of housekeeping rules, and I'd like my colleagues to make them available so that we go through them quickly. Fantastic, thank you. First of all, you have, if you haven't done so, please name yourself. Put your first name, your last name, add your country or your organization. Secondly, just to let you know that the cameras and the microphones are automatically disabled throughout the event, but we will interact with you using Slido. And I also invite you to ask your questions to the speakers in the chat. Feel free also to use Cedefop's social media channels as you see them in the chat. And you can also use the chat to contact our technical support team in case you experience any technical problems. The event is recorded. We have announced that also in our privacy statement, so that those who are interested to join, those who were interested to join today but couldn't make it, they can still watch it on YouTube in our channel, and also for you to disseminate it to your networks. Finally, since at Cedefop we do take continuous improvement very seriously, at the end of the event, I'd like you to take a couple of minutes and complete an evaluation form. But that's all with the housekeeping rules. Thank you, dear colleagues, for making it available. Let's go back now to the topic of our event. We call it Vet in Action. And we do it because we will see today how EU countries, Norway and Iceland, implement their ambitious plans to modernize their vet systems and the policies they put in place to address the common EU priorities in vet. These priorities have been agreed back in 2020 in the first ever Council recommendation on vet for sustainable competitiveness, social fairness and resilience, and at the Osnabrück Declaration on vet, supporting recovery and just transitions to the digital and green economies. Those two policy documents, they gave a fresh push to the European cooperation in vet, the so-called Copenhagen process, and they do frame the current policy cycle in vet. Today's virtual get-together will present Cedefop's analysis and also what we jointly do with our sister agency, the European Training Foundation, on the key achievements and the challenges that the countries face. In this journey, we will use and we will present evidence that we collected from Refernet, and this is Cedefop's network for expertise in vet, with whom we do this for a number of years, cooperating very closely together. Our event has 4 parts. The first one starts with a presentation by Cedefop on the analysis that we will provide to you on the overview of the policy developments in the different countries. The next one will be a panel discussion on the balance between responsiveness, flexibility, and also ensuring quality in VET. The third session will be about making VET attractive and the balance between excellence and inclusion. Next, after that, we will talk about any questions that you may have to our speakers, and we will close with a quick wrap-up and the way forward. But now, we will discuss. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Irina Yemelianova, an expert in Cedefop's VET policies and systems team. She coordinates the monitoring and analysis of EU priorities in VET. And she will be accompanied by Lisa Rustico, a colleague from another EU agency, the European Training Foundation. Lisa is a human capital development expert, and she will share the experience from the EU candidate countries. So with a very warm welcome, I'd like to give the floor to Irina and Lisa. Dear colleagues, the floor is yours to kick off this discussion.
Okay, thank you, Yorgo. I hope you see my presentation. Just give me some signal that it's being shared. So, is it?
Yes, Irina, it is.
Okay, yes. Great. Without further ado, again, welcome everyone. The purpose of my presentation with Lisa together is to give you a glimpse, a teaser of the wealth of information that we have at our disposal, because it will not be really possible to share everything. So it's really a teaser. During our presentations and during the event, you will get in the chat a number of links to our products, which you can study afterwards about, and you can explore in detail on your own. So what I will be presenting in my presentation refers mainly to EU27, Norway and Iceland data, but many of the points refer also to the candidate countries, but Lisa will tell you more after we look at a few slides that I will present. So why we are here today and what it's all about. Sorry for this. So as Yorgos pointed out, there is a policy framework for cooperation, and this has been in place at least from 2002, which is called the Copenhagen process. It's for those who are not from Europe, maybe you're not familiar with our processes. So where countries agreed on cooperation in vocational education and training, and now it's even more enhanced with the skills policies, with the skills agenda in Europe. So, and as we said, in 2020, these two important documents, I will not repeat, have been adopted. And following these two the adoption of these two documents, countries, I mean EU 27 plus and some candidate countries developed their national implementation plans. And for these two documents, we are now in the middle of the policy cycle, which started in 2020, and it will last until 2025 and even beyond. So for depending on the policy document which we refer to. And now we are in the phase of implementation, of putting plans in action, hence our the title of our event. And we, Cedefop and ETF, we conduct integrated monitoring, meaning that we observe how the countries address the priorities in these two documents. So it's one process. So a quick reminder, the VET recommendations set 6 priority areas. I will not reiterate them because Yorgos has mentioned them already, and but we will be hearing these words through our event today. The VET recommendation also set 3 quantitative objectives or targets towards which the countries would work. While the Osnabrück Declaration agreed by the countries and the European social partners, this was endorsed by those. set another four broad sets of priorities. And these two documents, they are very much related. They are sometimes echoing each other, but they put different accents, different, let's say, they regroup even priorities. A QR code with your mobiles, or you can follow the link in the chat. I hope it's coming. Ariadne, can you put the link in the chat? Okay, thank you. So you can start voting depending on which of the following are relevant to your country. You can choose more than one option. I hope more participants can get in. Yeah, the number is growing. Thank you for sharing. Sorry, we don't see the last line very well, but it's difficult to control this. No, it does not. So far, we have like half of the participants voting. But I think we have to move on. Thank you. You can continue. You can continue voting. But as I see already now from the results, we have received similar results in national plans. So most addressed priorities were making VET adaptive to the labor market needs and attractive based on modern and digitalized provision. Less addressed priorities, it doesn't mean they were not addressed, but they are less addressed, less measures were flexible VET and VET underpinned by quality assurance. So a red bar in this chart also shows the reported measures. So more or less the pattern is very similar. So having said that, where we are now, I will not repeat the countries. It just was mentioning that Norway, Iceland, and candidate countries, they committed themselves to the Osnabrück Declaration priorities. We analyze about 400 policy developments for EU 27 plus and about 40 for the candidate countries. We rely on our networks of expertise. ReformNet was mentioned by Yorgos, and ETF has its own network of experts. And what we see in brief, we observe among the measures that countries planned, strong national nature. They are very much based in the strategies and frameworks that have been adopted even prior to these two documents because the policy cycle was changing. We have notable EU influence in terms of priorities and also in terms of funding. Many national projects and programs rely on the EU co-financing, and that countries focus on implementation. A lot has been already started and accomplished, but the overall progress is modest. What countries do to achieve the priorities? Of course, I cannot read all the national plans to you, but just to give you a glimpse what they do, countries now introduce, identify, prepare, review, develop, being mostly at the early stage of implementation, but they also engage, update, ensure, adapt, and so on and so forth. Let's quickly look at the groups of priorities. I grouped them the way we plan our panel discussions also later. So in terms of agility of VET, countries adapt and update and create new occupational and VET standards, curricula. They include new competencies into that. They also strengthen work-based learning and apprenticeship. Practical side is very important for most of the countries. So in terms to make that flexible, they pay attention to individualizing pathways, diversifying modes of learning provision, qualifications, making them, let's say, smaller than formal qualifications, and so on and so forth. In quality assurance, they add to their comprehensive systems other aspects than just school-based, school-provided vocational training. I'm in a hurry. The presentation will be shared, so don't worry on this. And there is also a lot of material. So in terms of attractiveness, excellent and inclusive VET, to make VET attractive, countries try to provide VET at higher levels to ensure permeability. They also work to ensure that competent teachers, trainers, and school leaders are available in their systems. They go broader than just European VET. They make bilateral cooperation projects or cooperation projects broader than Europe. They also work on lifelong guidance to provide incentives and support to different groups of learners. And here I would switch to inclusive. So lifelong guidance is very much related to including all groups of learners, vulnerable groups with special needs. So they all go under inclusive VET in order to ensure that all learners, that everyone has a possibility to develop professionally and personally, individually as persons. In terms of excellence, VET and innovation, the focus is on the centers of vocational excellence. I should say that countries have their own concepts and also successful examples of this kind of institutions. And of course, digital and greening of VET is very much related to innovation, to growth. So, but of course, as you can see, a lot is done, but there are always areas to work on. And I quickly summarized the areas. There is a need to work on the governance, in terms of involving more trade unions, in terms of skill intelligence systems. There are several points you can see on my slide to strengthen the work on the green transition. Everybody speaks about it, but we don't observe so much in terms of developing, in terms of measures. Still, there is a lot of focus on vocational education training and skills, but lifelong learning and continuing vocational training needs more attention. And if you see, I put increasing the number of beneficiaries. There are many measures, but the numbers still remain limited. Inclusion, there are some aspects. The most important is ensuring access to vulnerable groups, to those who are at risk of exclusion, so that they are not excluded by providing digital service only, for example, instead of reaching out. And sorry, something happened. So, and in quality assurance, it's also going with quality assurance broader than school-based learning, just to work-based and to continuing VET. With this, I finish. I don't give answers in my presentation, neither a lot of evidence, but this is evidence-based. I rather raise questions, but I would ask Lisa to say, what about candidate countries? Are the trends similar, or you have some differences? Lisa.
Thank you very much, Irina. Good afternoon, everyone, from my side as well. I represent here the European Training Foundation, which is a Cedefop sister agency based in Turin. We work on the skills development aspect of the EU external action, meaning that we work with countries outside of the European Union. Among the 29 countries we work in, 5 participate in the Copenhagen process, all of them at least since 2015, and Irina showed them on the slides. These are Albania, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, and Turkey. They've been part of this group of countries for almost 10 years, and this shows it by the fact that they are familiarizing with the EU policy priorities and and progressively aligning. And I take the opportunity to welcome and greet participants from these countries that are participating today. I should say that there are also new candidate countries at the horizon that will participate, both from Western Balkan economies and countries of what in the ETF we call the Eastern Partnership regions. And these are Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. So in the near future, there will be even more candidate countries forming a considerable group of non-EU member states participating in this Osnabrück monitoring. As you said, Irina, all our countries submitted their NIPs, and the ETF has a national implementation plan, and the ETF has a mandate to monitor the Osnabrück Declaration. But not just because of what the declaration itself envisages, but for us, the monitoring has other objectives, which are to support the dialogue in the countries and to provide evidence which indirectly serves the purpose of finding evidence linked to the accession mechanism. So for us to revise the screening reports for relevant chapters such as education and labor. And now to answer your question, which findings did we have? They are partly aligned, but partly not. First of all, we have little information about the quantitative indicators. It's something that maybe will be discussed later in the event. It's not so straightforward for our countries to provide this data. Among the areas of more developments, there is for sure work-based learning, including apprenticeships, but also the work on governance, like engaging VET stakeholders and strengthening partnerships in VET. And unlike what you presented for the EU member states, there was quite a lot of work about ensuring equal opportunities and inclusiveness in education and training, and also work on quality assurance. Whereas among the areas for further progress, yes, we share the lack, or let's say the less number of policy developments to make VET more green and digital. Also, establishing and developing skills intelligence systems, including graduate tracking, is in areas for further work, but also validation and recognition of learning outcomes, as well as developing and updating learning resources and materials. Of course, this is a very short overview. I see we are already a little bit beyond time, and it doesn't show the differences among countries. For sure, in the first 2 years, 2021 and 2022, there was a lot of work in developing policies as such, whereas now the countries are putting these policies in place. So we also started in the ETF a reflection on what were the common enabling and disabling factors in implementing the NIPs. Maybe I can tell more about this later if there is time. And the reflection about the process will also start. We'll also continue this year at the end of May in an event that we will have in Turin, dedicated to these 5 countries, where we will collect more information about their experience in the Osnabrück process. And Cedefop is participating. Thanks, Irina, for joining us. All of this is done in view of our joint work. I care to repeat this with Cedefop because we have common milestones in 2025. We'll have a joint report on this and a joint event indeed at the end of the policy cycle. So I try to stay within the very few minutes, but I will stay here for the rest of the event. And if there is any question or any follow-up comments I can make, I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I was mute. Give the floor to George. No, not further ado.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Irina. Thank you, Lisa, for an excellent overview of the main EU priorities in VET and the key achievements of countries in implementing their ambitious national plans for VET. Let's move on now to the first panel discussion on making VET agile, flexible, and quality assured. And I'm very happy I will join forces with my colleague Irina Monsela. She's an expert in Cedefop in the Department for VET and Qualifications, and we will be accompanied by national experts and members of ReferNet, who will present their national examples. I'd like to ask them to switch on their cameras and slowly joining us, and I will start with David Dymkowski. He has a PhD in National Security Studies, and he's an expert at the Educational Research Institute in Poland. He supports industries in the Polish economy in creating sectoral qualification frameworks. Then we have Paula Zveinniece. She's the coordinator of ReferNet in Latvia and has been a teacher in a VET institution and a senior expert in the National Center for Education. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Gabriel Radu. He's an inspector, a regional coordinator at the National Center for TVET Development in Romania, and a member of Cedefop's ReferNet. So a very warm welcome to all of you. I will start by explaining a little bit the topic that we will discuss. I think this background is needed. And in VET systems across the EU, they are affected by the constant changes in the economy, in the society, the labor market. And they experience a number of challenges due to the recent pandemic, the technological advancements, the demographic challenges, the wars, and the related migration flows, and the energy crisis. When we talk about agility in this panel, we refer to the capacity of VET systems to respond quickly to the changing skill needs of the labor market and to the evolving demands such as the green and digital transitions. When it comes to flexibility, we put the focus on the learner, the individual, the citizen, by adapting VET to the various groups of learners. It is about providing progression opportunities and individual learning pathways, which are in line with the needs of the learners to up and reskill them in these turbulent times. But while agility and flexibility are important, we should not forget at the same time to ensure the quality of VET. This is key for VET systems to be trusted by all stakeholders and deliver to a high standard. And this briefly describes the topic we will be discussing in this panel. And with that short introduction, I'll give the floor to my colleague Irini and to David to kick off the discussion. So dear colleagues, the floor is yours.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon to everyone. Also from my side, we will kick off the discussion by looking at the responsiveness of VET to skill needs and the link with labor market stakeholders. And so I will address my first question to David. David, in Poland, sectoral approaches have been used to ensure alignment with labor market needs and strengthen cooperation between the ministry and the labor market stakeholders. Can you share with us how do you ensure a close link of VET to the labor market needs?
Good afternoon to everyone. Hello. Thank you for the question, and of course I can. Communication is the most important. That's why in Poland we try to maintain communication between VET and the labor market. The place where this occurs is provided by sector skills councils. They were established to enable representatives of the sector to influence the educational programs offered by school, universities, and training companies. How do they do it? So first of all, sector skills councils operate nationally, uniting representatives of the sector across Poland. That's why in each council we have representatives such as employers, higher education institutions, training companies, trade unions, labor market institutions, etc. Also, each council defines its specific goals and mode of operation independently. This is because each sector is different and also has different needs. Currently, we have 17 sector skills councils for sectors such as tourism, trade, marketing, communications, chemical industry, etc. Some of them are directly connected to current competence trends. For example, sector skills councils for IT, telecommunication, and cybersecurity are related to the digital field. On the other hand, we also have sector skills councils for waste management and wastewater management, and they are connected to the green transition. Nevertheless, we have 17 skills councils, and they have been established in 2016. 2017. Our researchers and discussions with Council's representatives show us that they primarily focus on initiating collaboration between representatives of the sector and higher education institutions, as well as initiating recommendations regarding to the competence needs. From the perspective of VET, councils also initiate modifications to the education program offered by schools. Councils also collaborate closely with the Educational Research Institute. They work with our team on developing sectoral qualifications framework. It's important for them because this is a simple tool that presents all specific sector competences in a structured way. And as a part of a national recovery plan, Poland is obligated right now to check if competences are up to date and also if sectoral qualifications framework are consistent with the latest European Union regulations on green skills. That's why right now we closely collaborate with sectoral skills for waste management, wastewater management, and construction industry, and we will finish our work on it by the end of third quarter 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I would now like to invite Paula to discuss about flexibility in vocational education and training. Paula, how do you understand flexibility in VET plays an important role in reaching out to various groups of learners, addressing their individual needs and ensuring inclusivity? How do you understand and approach flexibility in VET in Latvia, Paula? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. There has been a VET reform in Latvia that has been implemented since 2012, and the changes bring the existing VET system closer to the European practice and provide for a more flexible approach to the education process and greater opportunities for sectors to engage in the allocation of professional qualifications. And at the basis of this reform, there are 15 sectoral qualification structures, which include maps of professions. The sectoral maps of professions give an opportunity to a person to build their own portfolio for upskilling, and also for acquiring new professions, related professions, and acquiring missing parts of qualifications. The sectoral maps of professions are regularly revised and updated by sectoral expert councils, and they visually show all professions, their specializations in each sector, and also show how they are linked from level 2 to level 7. Furthermore, to make VET more flexible, terms a related profession, a specialization, and a part of professional qualifications have been introduced and defined. This then ensures a common understanding of the similar professional qualifications that can be acquired in a shorter time. And following this, as of September 2023, a student can receive a state-recognized document not only for the acquisition of an entire professional qualification, but also for its parts and parts of VET programs. This approach then has a link to the concept of micro-credentials. And however, the current challenge is that while the legislation has been developed, the implementation is falling behind, as defining parts of all professional qualifications is still in process. And in 2022, in order to ensure the quality of VET curricula, 102 state-approved sample programs for 187 professional qualifications were designed and published. The programs are modular and described in terms of learning outcomes. This helps to compare a person's acquired competences to a VET program they want to be enrolled in. And the state-approved VET curricula make the work of VET institutions easier and also less time-consuming. VET institutions can use the sample programs and design only the program implementation plans and individual learning plans. Moreover, a person's competence can now be validated for admission to the later stages of a VET program. A person who left the VET program prematurely, also so-called dropouts, can return back to the learning path in order to continue their studies from the points they stopped, to receive a document certifying their education and professional qualification. This will facilitate their inclusion in the labor market and give them opportunity to work in a higher qualified job. A person can be accepted in later stages of a VET program after taking a break, after obtaining another professional qualification, after recognition of professional competence acquired outside of the formal education system, and also when transferring to one VET school to another one, or from one VET program to another one. And another novelty to the VET reform is that VET program graduates now receive 2 documents, a diploma of vocational secondary education and also a certificate of a professional qualification. And also a gradual transition from the issuance of paper education documents to electronic ones has been introduced. And as of now, the certificate of professional qualification has already been issued electronically. All in all, in Latvia, all these changes, all these reforms support the learner's progression and also lifelong learning opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. I would now like to give the floor back to George to continue the discussion.
Thank you, Irini. I'm very happy also the chat is very lively. I see many questions being raised and several have been answered already. I'd like to reassure you that those that are not answered, we will have a few in the Q&A session towards the end of the event. And with that, I'd like to move to our third speaker, Gabriel Radu, if he can join us on the spotlight to discuss how we can keep the balance between fast and flexible responses to changing needs and at the same time ensuring quality in VET. And actually an important way to ensure quality is to put in place feedback loops with the labor market. And very recently, actually, skills intelligence and VET graduate tracking have gained momentum, as we see in our analysis, and they're becoming an integrated part of quality assurance mechanisms. So, Gabriel, that question is for you. In Romania, you have been implementing a graduate tracking system, and you actually organized a peer review in 2023, which has been sponsored by the European Network for Quality Assurance in VET to help you develop it further. Can you share your experience in developing the graduate tracking and what have you learned from the peer review? The floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity. I will start saying that one of the primary purposes of graduate tracking is to provide information to policymakers to develop and implement policies to ensure quality on VET and to better address learners' needs. Romania has recently developed a tracking mechanism at system level designed to provide detailed information at national, regional, county, and school level, which is based on 2 components. The first one is the administrative tracking, which is to be done for all types of graduates, both VET and non-VET graduates, so to allow comparisons. And the second one is the questionnaire-based survey, which is designed only for VET graduates from upper secondary and non-university tertiary education. The administrative tracking is meant to offer quantitative information from interlinking various databases to capture relevant information on graduate and their destination, either on being on the labor market or unemployed, enrolled or not in further education or in continuing vocational training courses. Surveys are designed in complementarity with the administrative tracking in order to provide mainly qualitative information, which are based on graduates' opinions that might be subjective, but reflects their experience, their opinions as regards, for example, their graduate satisfaction on learning experience in the school and acquired skills by the end of VET program, the usefulness of the VET program they graduated in looking for employment, their job satisfaction if they have a job. Also, surveys are meant to provide some factual information on data, on certain data that cannot be collected by administrative tracking, as for example, to capture any kind of work, regardless it is contract-based or undeclared work. Is not so important for the purpose of the survey. as well as to capture the situation of unpaid family workers, or information which are difficult to be addressed administratively. For example, the mismatch between the graduate qualification and his or her job, the graduate job seeking behavior, and so on. So there is a long process of implementation of graduate tracking in Romania. It started in 2013 based on a methodology that requires yearly application, 6 and 12 months after graduation for each cohort of graduation, based on questionnaire implementation at county level. By the Reconnect project, which is co-funded by EU, Romania has made recent developments to expand graduate tracking at national system level as part of an integrated mechanism linked to skills anticipation and evaluation policies. A dedicated platform has been developed for this purpose. Currently, this platform is populated with data for indicators obtained from administrative tracking of the last 5 cohorts of graduates that have been fully tracked. We started with the cohort graduated in 2018 till graduates from 2022. For each of these cohorts have been reported on the platform results of administrative tracking for each year after their graduation. Each cohort is administratively tracked for a period of 5 consecutive years. The platform also integrates the results provided by question-based surveys that have been piloted for VET graduates from the year 2021. Well, the main challenge, of course, there are a lot of challenges. The main challenges were related to increasing the graduate response rates to questionnaire, which was very low in the pilot phase. And strategically, it's very important to be as close as possible to beneficiaries' needs, to be more user-friendly as regards the presentation of information, so that to be adapted to the different categories of users. Thinking at further development, it's worth to mention increasing data quality, the need of including tracking, also the school leavers, and I stop saying adapting to new requirements in parallel with establishing a routine in annual application of graduate tracking. Well, April last year, the National Center for TVET Development has gladly hosted an ECAVET peer review event. 5 ECAVET network members from Finland, Italy, Malta, and Slovakia participated as peer reviewers. The event offered to us the opportunity to benefit from good practice exchanges and relevant ideas, such as to make sure that those who use and work with data clearly understand the underlying methodology and their limitation. To provide adequate training and support on data collection and use of data, in particular to schools and key stakeholders. And important maybe to say that the schools have a very important role in being in touch with graduates, and there were many discussions and sharing of experience how to do that, to be in touch with graduates, to involve them in the studies, in the surveys. Well, the peer review in Bucharest was just in time. And therefore, it was very useful in our ongoing process in finalizing development of our graduate tracking mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. And with that very interesting example, I'd like to move to the last part. We will have a forward-looking approach, and I would like to bring in all of our speakers on the spotlight. I have one question, the same question to all of you. What is important to work on in your country in the coming years to make VET agile, flexible, and quality assured? And I'd like very, very, very brief statements, then less than a minute from each one of you. And I'd like to start with Paola. Paola, please.
So for the coming years, definitely it would be defining parts of all professional qualifications and also reflecting them in the sectoral maps of professions, and also the complete transitions to issuance of digital vet documents.
Fantastic. That's very brief. Thank you, Paola. We'll come to Gabriel. Gabriel, if you can tell us briefly your plans, the next steps.
The work in the coming years for us will focus very much on the implementation of new provision in the education law, as, for example, the reform of the technological high school education to allow successively acquisition of EQF level 3 and level 4 qualification, facilitating the continuation of studies or entering the labor market, to strengthen and expanding dual education to provide all level of qualification from EQF level 3, which is currently in place, up to EQF level 8, and to increase the involvement of stakeholders, companies in the review of existing qualification and the development of new qualification in IVET.
Very good. Thank you very much, Gabriel. And with that, I give the floor to David for the last intervention.
Thank you, of course. Right now in Poland, sectoral qualification centers are being established. And this is the new idea of developing VET based on technologically advanced centers. And our hope is that through the recommendations of the sector skills councils and also practical work of sectoral skills centers, VET will be able to respond to labor market needs more quickly. And also that's why VET will be agile, flexible, and also quality assured.
Fantastic, David. So many thanks to all of you for your valuable contributions, for sharing your experiences, and also the steps that your countries take to modernize your VET systems. I think it is clear to all of us how committed countries are in implementing their national plans for VET, using in many cases the EU funding that is made available through the Recovery and Resilience Facility, as we've heard, and other initiatives. And with that, I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Dmitry Kuls, to moderate the next panel discussion. Dmitry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dimitris, and together with my colleague Irene, who you have met already today, she's from Cedefop, and of course our distinctive panelists, Jordana Gasparinho from Vocational Education and Training School. She's a student in Portugal. Jordana, hello. Inge Koek from the Estonian Ministry of Education and Research. Hello, Inge. And also Sabine Trisha Afshan from the IBW Austria Research Institute. So altogether, we would like to discuss the topic of making that attractive, excellent, and inclusive. Irina, my first question will be for you. Very briefly, as George said, how do you understand this different but linked concepts, attractive, excellent, and inclusive vocational education and training?
Thank you, Dimitris, for this question. So I will not keep the discussion very long. We have very interesting interventions from our colleagues. I think indeed that these concepts are very linked. On top, they are also linked to the topic of the previous panel. So I think, to me, attractive is vocational education and training where all learners, everyone, can find their pathway and can fulfill their professional and personal development needs. So this is, to me, attractive. So, but also it should be excellent. If it's excellent, if it's innovative, it has state-of-the-art infrastructure, very good offer, excellent offer. It also attracts all learners. And also competent teachers and trainers. We have a few questions in the chat as well. They also make that attractive. So with this, I would stop. I think they are all related and they all need somehow to be balanced.
Interesting insights, Irina. Thanks. I could only subscribe to those. Thanks very much. Jordana, You're studying, as far as I know, filmmaking in vocational school in Algarve. Based maybe on your personal experience of following your passion of filmmaking, can vocational education and training help make dreams come true? I mean, what would you advise to those young people like yourself who are still maybe hesitant to choose vocational pathway?
So vocational training can make dreams come true because I'm truly living it. Since September, I've been in vocational training for film and television here in the Algarve in Portugal at my school, ETIC. It's a passion that I've always had since I can remember, but never thought of it as a possibility or a career choice because I didn't know of anyone around me that had taken this pathway. So I was a little out of touch and I didn't really know where to start. So since COVID and having not been studying and only working, I started to think that it would be the best option for me at this moment to succeed in life and what will fulfill this creativeness in me. So last year I made a choice, I did it, and so far it has been the best choice I've made professionally. It gives me access to a lot of information, knowledge, and options in the industry that I want to be in. It gives me more passion and drive as I like doing what I'm doing. There's nothing better than learning more and more of something that you like and that you are good at. I would definitely advise anyone, especially our younger generation, to not be hesitant if you're thinking about choosing vocational training as a possible career path, because I wasn't hesitant and I have not regretted it 1 minute. You have nothing to lose in learning more and growing more as a person. If you want to be and go higher in the career that you're thinking about, vocational training, I think, is the best way to forward, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jordana. Thank you for sharing your experience, your personal experience with us. It surely looks like the vocational education and training has been an attractive choice for you. Thanks a lot. Inga, I have a question for you. You may agree with me and some other colleagues that have been speaking today, that attractiveness of vocational education and training is often linked to excellence and inclusiveness. In Estonia, are these two concepts contradictory, or you would say that they are two sides of the same coin? What is your take on this?
Hello, everyone. And Dimitris, thank you for this question. This is highly relevant in Estonia right now. Early leaving from education and training and vocational education as a second choice for basic school graduates have been long-term challenges. Despite measures taken to enhance inclusiveness, such as improving support systems and the professional development of teachers, or measures to enhance excellence, such as developing the digital skills of both learners and teachers and investing in high-level learning environments, our improvements have been minor. According to PISA results, Estonia has the smartest basic school graduates in all of Europe. However, 1/5 of our students drop out in the first year of upper secondary VET. Also, the ratio of general to vocational upper secondary students has been 3:1 for years. 5% of basic school graduates take a kind of sabbatical. They do not continue their studies at all. So the proportion of young people without any qualification is increasing. Therefore, Estonia has set a goal that by 2035, 90% of our 20 to 24-year-olds should have acquired secondary or vocational education. Now this share is 83%. A reform has been initiated to extend compulsory education until the age of 18. So in our vet system, we have to answer the question of how to simultaneously accommodate a much larger number of young learners, how to support their learning and prevent dropout, and how to offer flexible and attractive options for much more diverse groups of young learners, how to be more inclusive and excellent at the same time and on a larger scale. With the reform, there will be more vet learners who need extensive support and preparatory studies to develop their learning motivation and skills. But also there will be more of those learners who, instead of the two theoretical general upper secondary, wish to acquire high-level practical skills and be able to continue in higher education someday. We have a first pilot in this direction. It's a 4-year upper secondary vet program in ICT to prepare junior software developers and system administrators. Overall, to tackle this double challenge, we have started to move in several directions, introducing a joint admission system to offer a place of study for every basic school graduate, transforming the previous vocational orientation studies to broader preparatory studies, redefining special educational needs in vet to focus on integrated support, and extending the now 3-year vocational secondary education programs to 4 years to allow more flexibility and strengthen the basic and general skills of learners. This is meant to both prevent early leaving, transform vet to be a more viable alternative to gymnasium education, and improve the transition to the labor market. We are quite aware that the planned measures are ambitious and will be implemented gradually, so the results of our efforts can be evaluated only in some years. In Estonian case, we want our vet to be the first choice for more young people. We need to develop vet targeting both inclusiveness and excellence. A small, narrow vet sector can give priority to one or the other, but when the vet sector has ambitions to expand, it has no choice but to enhance both. Thank you.
Thank you, Inge. Thanks very much for sharing with us your experience in bringing these important issues up. And this indeed sounds like a very ambitious plan for Estonia, so good luck. And as you know, Cedefop is here to support you with whatever we can, a rich selection of best practice examples, research, and many more. Now, I would like to ask a question to Sabine. Sabine, Austria has also put together an ambitious national plan, if I understand correctly, on vocational education and training. And it actually emphasizes developing vocational training at higher levels.
Correct.
Could you tell me, why is this important? Why is this important to have the higher vet?
Yes, of course I can. Yeah, we have several measures in our NIP, that's right. But the establishment of a separate higher vet sector or separate higher vet segment is probably one of the most important ones, and as you also say, one of the most ambitious ones, yes. So we have passed a law actually on this, and this law will enter into force in a couple of days, namely on the 1st of May. So we're brand new, so to say, very up to date. And this law will set a framework for the establishment of higher vet. And from then on, the work will actually begin, the operational work will begin, the concrete implementation. Now, because you asked for the rationale behind this measure, we have in Austria a highly attractive vet sector on upper secondary level. We have 75% of an age cohort choosing a vet program on upper secondary level. But nevertheless, we wanted to have a look at the higher vet sector, the higher vet levels. And the discussions on establishing an own segment, a separate segment on higher vet actually began with the National Qualifications Framework. The discussion on the NQF, on the establishment of the NQF, it or actually it accelerated the discussions on higher vet as an own sector. And this has something to do with the fact that we have a comprehensive framework. So we have potentially all qualifications can be placed on an NQF level, can be assigned to the NQF. So formal qualifications that are governmentally regulated, non-formal qualifications from private CVET provider institutions, vet qualifications, just as general education qualifications, higher education qualifications, so the Bologna qualifications, as well as qualifications from outside the Bologna area from the higher levels. And all these qualifications can also be potentially signed to all 8 levels, so from level 1 to level 8. Yeah? And an important principle of mapping here is parity of esteem. So this principle has actually put a close focus on, or has focused the discussion primarily on the upper levels, so level 5, but in particular so level 6 to 8, because the Bologna qualifications are on the levels 6 to 8. But as I said, parity of esteem, also other qualification from outside the Bologna area can be mapped on one of these 3 levels. So in a way, what we say is they are equivalent in terms of the level, even though they are different from in terms of contents, they are different in terms of learning sites, they are different in terms of learning context, but nevertheless, they can be on the same level, and they are actually, yeah. And these qualifications from outside the Bologna area, they are of great importance for the economy, for the labor market, for the companies. So in our case, the increased demand from companies for higher level qualifications cannot be equated necessarily with the need for university graduates only. Yeah? So companies do, to put it very bluntly, not only look for university graduates. I don't want to underestimate this. This is university provide very important programs as well, but nevertheless, also the vet programs outside university, outside higher education are equally important. And these qualifications do not have the same public perception. They are not as attractive, and speaking of attractiveness, they are not as attractive as the Bologna qualifications. They're less known, they have less prestige, they're less prestigious, and so are the holders, of course. Yeah? So the parity of esteem, this principle of equivalence embodied by the NQF, enshrined by the NQF, is in a way not reflected in reality. So we do one thing and we think the other. There is a gap between what we proclaim, what we declare, and what we do. Yeah? So this is actually essentially behind the whole initiative of establishing a higher vet sector. Yeah? So there has been a strong desire to consolidate this area more strongly. That is to say, to organize it, to structure it, to give it a common ground, to define common elements, to have kind of a unifying bracket, and also to brand it, to name it, to label it, to give it a name. And this is higher vet, practical higher vet. Yeah? And this, so to make the whole area more homogeneous. Yeah, just as the higher education area is in the academic sector. Yeah. So the law, which now comes into force, as I have just mentioned, on May 1st, essentially regulates everything that is central to higher vet, that is qualifications that are acquired outside higher education institutions, that are strongly demand-driven and not supply-driven. Then the social partners play a crucial role in the governance. Yeah, that these qualifications build on initial vet and on professional experience, that they rely heavily on professional practice and experimental learning. And the law also provides for common quality assurance standards, common guidelines for the assessment procedures, then also data collected in order to create empirical evidence. And what is also important, this is my last point, that it also provides for common titles. So we establish the qualification titles. So we establish 3 qualification types, 3 to 4 qualification types with common qualification titles. So there is greater harmonization and the brand name higher VET, and this also should make this area better understood, more visible, more attractive. And this attractiveness should also sort of have a positive effect on the attractiveness of IVET. There is a relation between the attractiveness of higher VET and the attractiveness of IVET.
Thank you, Sabine, very much. It would struck me that you have different, not the same, but equal qualifications, and that's very interesting. Over to you, Irina, because I know you might have more questions for our colleagues.
Yes, thank you very much to our panelists for your interesting contributions. I think indeed very rich piece of information that we now have to reflect upon. So things are in progress and there is still much to be done. So my question to you is, in the coming years, let's say in the framework of 5-6 years, what is important to work on to make and keep vocational education and training attractive, inclusive and excellent? Just very briefly, a few points. I will start with Inga.
Yes, it's very relevant for us would be, I would say, better bridging or integration of general vocational and applied higher education, or we could call it higher VET, by which I mean, for example, joint credit point system in general and vocational education, harmonized VET program development to facilitate transitions, micro-credentials, recognition of prior learning. And secondly, maybe improving skills anticipation, not only by responding to both needs of learners and the labor market, but also kind of shaping the needs. I mean, development of green skills, broad and interdisciplinary programs or flexible preparatory programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Inga. Sabine, what about you? What is your opinion?
Well, I agree also with Inga, but I add a few points, maybe up-to-date qualification profiles. I think this is also very important, that VET has to react as quickly as possible to societal, political, economic, technological, digital changes. This is very important. Then permeability. We need to establish educational pathways to have a solid IVET foundation, so to say, on the upper secondary level, and make progression possible up to levels 7, 8 even. Yeah, so this is very important, but not just permeability on the vertical level, but also on the horizontal level. So changing into the academic side, the column. And again, a subject that is very important also in connection to higher VET here in Austria is validation, recognition of prior learning, in particular informal learning. So the work experience is given more and more attention here.
Thank you, Sabine. I think very important points, and thank you for adding up to Inga's intervention. Jordana, you experience vocational education and training from within, let's say, I don't say on the other side, from within. What do you think? Where should work go on? Where countries should work more to keep that attractive, excellent, and inclusive?
I think one of the best things to work on more is to make vocational training more attractive in the practical side. Speaking of myself, I love practical work, and to have the possibility to go to places and see what will our future position in the industry will be like, and even go to events and maybe as well talk to more people in the industries. That would be, I think, the most attractive for myself.
Thank you, Jordana. Very important point. Practical aspect is of interest, and it's on the agenda for most of our countries, I would say. So thank you very much for your contributions. We've heard the learner, we've heard a ministry, we heard a researcher, research institute, And I think these are all very important, and this is really great. The work continues, and now it's time to get some questions. George.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting discussions. Very lively, actually, chat as well. We do have some questions, which we do have 10 minutes to address them. So this is very good. I'd like to start with the one addressed to Cedefop and ETF. And we've seen in the chat that both Irina and Lisa referred to areas to work on, but participants would like to know what are the main challenges the countries face in implementing their national implementation plans. So, Lisa, Irina, let's have you on the spotlight, and let's hear what your analysis shows.
Just, Lisa.
Yes, I'm here. Well, since I have the floor, maybe I can very quickly share what are the challenges based for our 5 countries, so that maybe then, Irina, you take more time, based on the consultation, so to say, that we had during an online event last year, but then I said the bulk of the work about the reflection and self-assessment of countries' participation in this process will be done later in May. So the common disabling factors in the implementation of the national implementation plans were the lack or delays of funding or the lack of stable funding for measures, the gaps in capacity and professional opportunities for professional development in institutions. Also, the lack of employers' participation and buy-in, for example, in dual education, was a point that was mentioned. But in some countries, political instabilities and changes in governments. And last but not least, because we discussed also the importance of graduate tracking and so forth, the lack of information and data, not just for graduate tracking, but this was mentioned with reference more generally to the availability of sources for the monitoring. Of course, these also have the bright side, which was the enabling factors. So there are, it's very important, the international support of the EU and other donors in these countries, but also collaboration among stakeholders. And I think that, our stakeholders in these countries think that Osnabrück is an opportunity to enhance this, and we as the ETF, we do all that is possible to bring them together and raise awareness on what needs to be done to overcome the challenges that I mentioned. Over to you, Irina.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. You raised a few points to which I would subscribe, although, of course, the context of the countries might be different. I would just point out, maybe from a long list of possible challenges which are contextual, I would just raise a few which I believe some countries face. One of the most important is sustainability of reform or sustainability of effort invested into the reform, so that once reform started, does it reach its final objective or it changes? And you mentioned political instability. Maybe it's not so much the case for the EU 27 plus countries, although there have been some crises, let's say, in some countries. But I think really it's important to keep the torch, let's say Olympic torch of the reform when the government changes. We had a few cases when with the change of government, now a few countries, they consider, can we change the national implementation plan? Can we adjust it to the new priorities? But it's important that maybe some original ideas and visions are still perpetuated in the updated plans. Of course, it's good to update plan, but so it's good also to keep the flag of the reform. Stakeholder involvement, not statutory, because in most of our countries we have some provisions for advisory councils, boards. but real feedback loop that really employers provide and their feedback is taken on board. And this concerns, for example, skills intelligence. Again, countries introduce skills intelligences, but then how this information is used. With this, I stop. There are many more things to discuss, but I would like also to hear our participants to speak. Over.
Thank you, Irina. Indeed, we do have some time, and we can open it up a little bit more and about the challenges. So we heard about Cedefop's and ETF analysis on the challenges that we see the countries facing. But if any of our speakers would like to present their own challenge, say a few things about what do they face while implementing their ambitious plans, please switch on your cameras and unmute your mic and share with us your experience. David, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I try to answer this question on chat. We didn't have to convince anyone because, as I said, sector skills councils are advisory bodies. And if they see problem, then they react. Also, our policymakers, if they see problem, they also want to react because we want to make that better. That's why I think the most important is to be conscious and also to understand the problem and looking for solutions, how to just resolve it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We see participants already reacting in the chat and also sharing that lack of cooperation or little cooperation exists between the different stakeholders. So could Paola or any other of our speakers say something about that?
Yes, sorry. Well, regarding our sectoral expert councils that I mentioned before, it's not that they only are comprised of sectoral experts. It's actually three-part cooperation between the professionals from the sector, then the relevant ministries, and also the trade union, which then represent the employees. So it's actually, there is this close cooperation so that all sides are being heard in the policy-making process.
Yes, indeed, Paola, this is true. We see this, but also apart from this, there is also something that we have seen in the chat. It requires also political will from policymakers to mobilize the necessary resources. So sometimes, although there is the will, the devil lies in the details, as we say, where to find and how to mobilize resources. So any of our speakers would like to share their view in relation to this?
Yeah, maybe I can add to this because, as I said before, we have an ambitious NIP here in Austria. And also for us, it was difficult to have, so to say, an overall perception because we have subsystems of VET. We have the dual VET system. We have mainly school-based VET, and we have the CVET area where social partners play a crucial role. And of course, all three subsectors have many different stakeholders. But on the whole, I have to say that the measures that are being named in the NIP, that are being described in the NIP, they are being worked on. You know, it could sometimes be faster, and there could be more effort being done. But on the whole, it is kind of a guiding principle maybe to have the NIP measures described and to have them as a plan, so to say. And there is quite a few cooperation between the stakeholders, I have to say. This works more or less quite well here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sabine, for sharing that with us. We have another 2 minutes if any of our speakers would like to make any last intervention describing the challenges they face and how they overcome them. I will give a few seconds if anybody else would like to share their experience. Otherwise, we will move to wrapping up the virtual get-together and talk about the way forward. So another couple of seconds. You're free to unmute your microphones and speak up. But since I do not see any movement on that, I guess we have addressed all the different areas that we have seen. Thank you very much for your very interesting examples, for sharing with us your experiences. And we actually, I would say that we do see positive signs in countries moving forward in implementing their plans. But also we discussed about areas where efforts should be intensified. As our speakers already explained, countries are not alone in this journey. They discuss with their peers from other countries, with the European Commission, and they are also financially supported by the EU. So in that part, I would like to hear also what happens in Brussels. And I would like to invite Jan Varchola, a team leader in the unit dealing with VET at the Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, to present how the European Commission will support countries to continue implementing their national plans for VET, in line with the EU priorities, of course, that have been agreed between them. So, Jan, we're very happy to have you with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, George, and good afternoon to all colleagues. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, colleagues in Cedefop, for organizing this event, and also for all the speakers and for making the interventions and participants discussing in the chat. I think, this is really one of the crucial things to do. We heard before that the national implementation plans, the NIPs, are in the early stage of implementation. So any kind of exchanges among the countries or on best practices, on some tips, avoiding some mistakes, they are very, very useful, especially in this period of time. We are also doing similar exercises. We discuss various practices from the NIPs during our meetings with Directors General for Vocational Education Training in the Advisory Committee on VET, and we are now also organizing a series of webinars on various topics related to the implementation of Council recommendation and the Osnabrück Declaration. The next one will take place, if I may do a bit of promotion, the next week on Monday, and it will be devoted to the centers of vocational excellence. So what we do, George, to your question, well, maybe I will just recall that we have a number of support initiatives and activities, and I'm not going to name them all, but we have a lot to offer. We work on various trends, so be it apprenticeships, also graduate tracking that was mentioned today, centers of vocational excellence. We work on green and digital transitions, a lot of topics. We are continuing to doing that. But what we also try to do is always to align these policy priorities with the funding. And I would just like to stress that from 2021, we have really unprecedented amount of EU funds, possibilities to finance reforms in skills and in VET. So this is really, I would say, a key momentum, especially at national level, to make very wise investments. And the more, it is important to have exchanges like today to align, the funding, the projects with the policy priorities. Maybe last but not least, I would like to mention that, and we heard it as well, the Osnabrück Declaration was adopted in 2020, expires at the end of 25, and I would like to just maybe announce for the colleagues who are not aware, the Danish presidency has announced the intention to host an informal ministerial meeting linked to Euroskills competitions that will take place in September next year, in September 2025, with the idea to adopt a successor to the Osnabrück Declaration that would then continue the momentum for vet reforms. So having said that, again, many thanks for this interesting discussion, and I look forward to continuing this debate in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan, for informing us about the plans of the European Commission and also for the Danish presidency and the forthcoming intention to strengthen the European cooperation in vet. And with that, we come to this last part where I'd like to discuss with you, dear participants, the way forward. And we would do that by asking you to vote. I'd like to ask my dear colleagues at the background to share the Slido. It's already there. Fantastic. And you see on the slide the 6 priorities of the Council recommendation on vet. These are the different priorities we have discussed in our 2 panels. And but we have also asked you at the beginning of the event, which areas are relevant to your country? That's not the same question now. I'd like you to follow a different approach and reflect on the areas where more work is needed. So where do your countries need to intensify their efforts, according to your opinion? And not only on new areas, I'm referring also to areas that actions are happening right now, and according to your opinion, they should be strengthened, it should continue. And I'm saying this because policy developments in education and vocational training take a while before we actually see any results. So I see people voting. We have already 25 people, 1/5 of who is in our virtual get together. So I'd like to encourage you to continue voting. The more you participate, the more reliable the voting is. So there is a clear trend on the less popular, let's say, areas, the areas where less work is needed. There is a competition really between agile, flexible, and innovative and excellent. It really does not surprise me, the part about agile and resilient vet. This is also what our analysis shows, that there is a lot happening in the countries. Developments related to agile and flexible and resilient vet are at the forefront of the country's national plans for vet, and it has been supported by the Recovery and Resilience Fund, and that's a very good reason why we see this. But it shows that still work needs to be done. Now it dropped in the 2nd place, and this is true because there is even room for improvement to making vet agile and resilient in adopting somehow developments to attract more people in the teaching profession. We have seen that in the chat. Quite a few references about teachers and trainers being supported, and we need to attract more people in the profession. But we also need to attract more vet learners to address the shortage of skilled workers. Flexible vet, I see, is on the top of the priorities where work is needed, and this is very much in line with what our analysis shows right now, because there is room for improvement there, especially in adopting systemic and comprehensive approaches, especially for people that are most in need of training. And this is indeed one of the future priorities, one of the areas to work on. You see, innovative and excellent vet is next there, and this actually links to something that I have seen already in the chat. In the chat, you were talking about digitalization, you were talking about AI, and I must say that there is a great potential there, because when vet systems are preparing for the twin transition, the emergence of artificial intelligence, that's a very recent trend, and the use of extended and virtual reality in vet are exploited only by very few countries right now. So definitely on that front, there is more to be done. Then Attractiveness, we talked about the teaching profession and attracting more learners. Inclusive, that's true. We should never forget about the inclusive and social character of VET to cater for students with disadvantaged economic and social backgrounds. And you know, these are not sufficiently included in VET. But then I see VET underpinned by quality assurance as not one of the priorities or not the areas to work on. So there I would like to prompt country somehow and remind of the panel discussion we had at the beginning where we were talking about the balance between agility, flexibility, and quality assurance. So we see that there is a lot to be done according to your voting in flexible and agile VET, but when we adopt approaches into making this agile and flexible, we should never forget about quality assurance. And with that, I think we have many votes. Thank you very much for voting. I think it is time to close that right now. We will definitely use that information and compare it with our analysis to help us understand the gaps and identify the areas where more work is needed. Now, I'd like, before closing, to invite you to stay tuned. If you want to learn more, follow our work, follow Cedefop's work, as we will be producing reports in the following weeks and months, analyzing the progress that the countries have made in addressing those EU priorities in VET. As we speak, country policy briefs on VET are made available on our website, and you will find the link in the chat where you can actually visit them and see what the countries are doing. These are individual country reports that we will consider in our analysis. We will also continue making available latest policy developments that we collect from Refernet, our valuable partner, our network of expertise in VET, and we will visualize that information on the timeline for VET policies in Europe. I'd like to invite you also to subscribe to Cedefop's newsletter to get all the latest on our research and other activities. You will also find the link to the chat. And with that, I'd like to come to the end of our virtual get-together. And I would like to thank our panelists, Jan, Paula, David, Gabriel, Inga, Jordana, and Sabine, my colleagues Irina, Dimitris, Irini, my ETF colleague, Lisa, but also my set of colleagues who have been working behind the scenes, Maria Elena, Ariadne, Zeynep, Anthi, Veronica, and our IT support, Thodoris and Vasilis, who made this event possible. I would also like to thank all of you, dear participants, for a very lively chat that you have addressed a number of questions, and it shows how committed you are in this process. We will send you a link with the presentation and the recordings after the meeting so that you can share with your colleagues and your networks. But before we close, I'd like really to invite you to take a couple of minutes of your time to fill in the short evaluation form that you will find in the chat. And that's it from Cedefop for today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a nice rest of the day. Thank you and bye-bye.